Okay, welcome to our Cal CPA interview with Pasadena City College students. And the topic today is how to secure an internship as a community college student. My name is David Lowe. I'm a senior manager here at the California Society of CPAs, and I'm happy to be joined with five community college students from Pasadena City College. So I'll go ahead and start with David Nunez. Go ahead and tell us a little about yourself. Why did you choose to study accounting, and what internship do you have and when do you start?
Sure, yeah. So, hello everyone. My name is David Nunez. I'm an accounting major. This was my last semester at PCC. I'll be transferring to Cal State LA in the fall. My journey in accounting started about 2 years ago. But long story short, I transitioned from blue collar work and I wanted to get into kind of an accounting field because that was what I was interested in at the time. And, in the last year or so, I did a lot of things to advance myself in terms of accounting and accounting as a career. And now I'm pretty much lined up for a internship in the summer with PwC as a start intern. Yeah,
Awesome.
very excited.
Thank you for sharing. Nicholas.
Definitely. Yeah, my name is Nicholas Iniguez. I'm an incoming consulting intern. I'm going to be in PwC's mergers and acquisitions practice under due diligence. And I'm actually going to be attending training with David this summer. So it's going to be fun. We're both going to be in the downtown LA office. Um, yeah, I ended up deciding on accounting through discussions with a mentor of mine who just mentioned that, I was unsure about a major. And she mentioned there's a lot of opportunity in it, a lot of pathways to go down. And I said, okay, and did it. And now we're here.
Awesome. Cougar.
Hi, my name is Cougar Harlow. I'm a business admin major at PCC, but I'm pursuing accounting. I have an internship with EY for the summer of 2024 in their financial services office in assurance. I fell in love with accounting. I actually attended a professional speaker event, and that's when I was really introduced to all of the benefits and really the possibilities that accounting can bring. And it snowballed from there. I went to my club on campus, the Lancer Business Organization, and they really helped me with my resume and a lot of other opportunities that I wouldn't have gotten if I had not attended those clubs on campus. So
Great. Thank you for sharing. And Peter.
Hi, everyone. My name is Peter Devletin, and just like Cougar, I'm a business admin major right now at PCC, but I'm pursuing an academic certificate or diploma in accounting. And what made me really love accounting was just stumbling into something that I didn't know, and I just happened to be all right at it. So, yeah, that was my journey. Honestly, very lucky to say.
Awesome. And who do you have an internship with, and when do you start?
Yeah, I have an internship now with MCNK Tax Consulting
Great.
for this summer as well.
Thank you. And Colin.
Absolutely. My name is Colin Cragen, and I am a first-year student at Pasadena City College who got his internship at Ernst & Young for this summer. So this summer I'll be in San Francisco in their CBS service line, and I'm very excited to tell you more about how this process came to be.
Awesome. Well, it's very exciting to have all five of you here, and we're hoping to have more PCC students come in and share about their stories. I think I was talking to you offline about how rare it is outside of PCC to come across community college students who have secured internships at public accounting firms. And I kind of wanted to find out a little bit more about your journey in terms of getting your internship, though. So I'll start with Colin here. So we left off with him. What was the process like in applying, and how did you even find out about opportunities at firms like at EY?
I first have to say that this has been a process since September, where I started applying for Deloitte. And initially, I would go on LinkedIn, talk to recruiters, and see what the possibilities were. And I think when you really want to get an opportunity that is really hands-on and is an opportunity that would be seen at four-year institutions, unfortunately, the the career service at a community college oftentimes doesn't see this as a capacity. And so these great opportunities that we're going to be talking about tend to be this self-initiative. And so for me, what really stood out through this process is that I was constantly polishing. And as a first year student, it meant polishing on the spot. And so I did a venture capital internship. I did an EY online internship. I did the finance committee, 3 committees at student associated students. And so the culmination of all these things turned out to be perfect. And with the club Lancer Business Organization being created, it really gave me a platform to feel confident, but also see that accounting firms are looking for talent. And if you present yourself right and you're not afraid to go and, have your resume critiqued by people before presenting it to a company, then I think you have a very good shot of getting it. And so for me, since September, I got my offer somewhere around March, late March. And, it was definitely very stressful at the time, but now I have a pathway, a future that is pretty much perfectly lined up in a way where I know that, okay, as long as I keep going this way, we're going to do very well. And if we choose to go somewhere else, we can do even better. So I'm very pleased with the entire academic year I have progressed with. Yeah.
Great, thank you for sharing. And Peter, tell us a little bit about your internship and how did you end up applying for it though? How did you find out about that opportunity at MCNK?
Yeah, so the way I got my internship was actually just straight networking. I think there's a very famous saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And in my situation, that was actually the case. I basically happened to know people and they were mutual friends or they were mutual contacts with whoever I'm involved with now. So a piece of advice I would give is make sure you talk to people and don't be afraid to do so, because you'd be surprised how many people are willing to help.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And I just want to add that who did you know that sent you the internship? Also, so I'm gonna say Peter has been, so I'm the vice president of the business club here at PCC, and Peter has been very hands-on and intentional about, expressing that desire to want to learn more about the business field. And he's been at every single event early, has been helping out, and yeah. And I guess to say what happened is that we actually got messaged an internship that only had a handful of slots. And so we'll send out internships to people, but when there's only a couple of slots, we'll just ask people we know. And I think that's what happened with Peter, right?
That's awesome. And Nicholas, we have you here. Tell us a bit about your story about getting your internship though, and how did you apply? How did you find out about the opportunities?
Definitely. You'll notice a common theme. Our accounting professors hold these accounting events, and I attended one last year. And they mentioned that you can apply. I didn't think I'd qualify for anything. I applied to numerous and got rejected for most of them. But there's this early career program where they were looking for people, that freshman summer and that sophomore summer. And I applied to that, and that ended up giving me the interview. Luckily my resume was pretty polished and I had some people look it over. And then in the interview, I find that just having one or two quality experience to talk about when it comes to teamwork, right? Solving a problem with other people, and yeah, and then trying to get that, personal connection with the interviewer.
Awesome. And Cougar, what about your experience? How did you find out about the opportunities for interning, and what was the application process like and interviewing process like?
Well, for me, it was like Colin says, very, very self propelling. You really have to put the work in yourself to find these opportunities. I kind of around February realized that, hey, if I was going to make the recruiting boat for this summer, I had to start now. I applied, I polished my resume, and I got a couple interviews. And unfortunately, those didn't go the best, but I got a lot of great feedback. I got a lot of practice, and I think I reached out to some mentors of mine for help, and I really struggled. But then I used that feedback to grow, and it helped me. And I ended up landing an interview for next summer, which was just so amazing. And just being able to learn and pick yourself up even after multiple failures really was the deal breaker for me. So I think even if you've been rejected, it's not that sometimes you're just not the best fit for that firm, and sometimes it's hard to accept that, right? And sometimes you might be a better fit in this role where they don't have enough spots for you, and it's just accepting that you just got to get back up and apply again, right? There's only so many slots. So.
Right. And David, tell us about your experience.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to share. So my, I guess, journey through internships and at PwC kind of harkens back to what Colin said earlier. It kind of goes back kind of last year in September, or even in the summer. At the time, I really didn't really know how to go forward with networking, how to get a career in accounting. I was kind of really curious to know, but I didn't really know where to begin. But at the time, I got introduced, or actually took my managerial accounting class, and I have a great professor who we all know named Greg Lee. He's a very great sponsor for our club at school, the Lancer Business Organization. And I pretty much went up to him during his office hours one day, and I asked him, hey, how can I start networking? Who do I talk to? How do I get involved in clubs? What can I do to stand out, get the attention of the firms I want to join? And, the first thing I did, join LBO. I became a member. Also, I became a member of Cal CPA, a student membership there. So I started to quickly get involved in a lot of things. And, from there, also with experiences, whether it be volunteering and jobs at events. I know Nick mentioned the speaker events. Those were very influential. If your school has events that, these firms come and you could meet the recruiters, I can't stress enough how important that is. Because as soon as you show a face, to your application, that adds a lot more to what they're looking for. They could look at you and say, oh, this is David. I met him. I introduced him. I like him. Maybe we could give him an internship in the summer. And that's kind of how I sort of got my internship for PwC. I got to meet Natalie McFarland. She's in a consulting at PwC right now. Got to meet her. I introduced myself. And then from there, I applied to PwC. Heard back from them in about a week. I got to meet another recruiter, and then it kind of just snowballed from there. But I think the one thing that really helped me out is my experiences that I displayed on my resume. I was part of LBO. I went to a leadership experience with USC. I also did a real estate internship. So all these experiences, they kind of add up to the quality of your character and kind of what you can accomplish, especially as a student, as a community college student, I should say.
Sure.
So yeah, I think all those things really informed kind of what PwC was looking for in me, and then also kind of reaching out to them and say, hey, I really want this.
Definitely. And David, I was gonna ask, and all those were at PCC, right? Like,
Yeah, all those experiences were in a span of, I'd say, less than a year, probably
incredible.
like
Wow.
6 to 9 months. So I got myself involved in a lot of things, but I think all those things, being able to get involved in that, but also accomplishing and finishing kind of what you started, really shows character. It shows the kind of person who you are, and on top of your schooling, you could kind of do all these things. Yeah.
Awesome.
One thing that I picked up on from all 5 of you was kind of the self-initiative. Like, it's not like you have accounting firms, 5 of them showing up every week, tabling and talking to students, handing out swag and showing up at classes. It's something that you had to find out for yourself. I mean, there's speakers that come, and yes, they were at, PwC showed up, but that's like once they were there for like an hour,
Yeah.
out of the whole school year, right?
Definitely.
I mean, literally. And So I just want to emphasize that to the community college students that are out there, is that just because, you know, MCNK or PwC or Grant Thornton or whatever isn't on your campus doesn't mean that you don't have a shot at an internship with them. And the other thing I picked up on too was just, and I think Cougar mentioned this, that struck me is rejection. I want to see a show of hands. How many people have you, if you've been rejected for a job or an internship, you know, right? Yeah. So I think part of Colin's like, you know, hasn't been, but I think, but even if it was not a bit, I think it's about failure, about like, hey, yes, this process is not gonna, you're not gonna go like 10 for 10 or, you know, 20 for 20 in terms of like, you know, maybe some people do, but I think the more likely than not though is that you're gonna somehow deal with a rejection, you know, hey, we don't have any slots or whatever the reason is, but you still are able to get back up and say, you know what, I'm gonna apply for, you know, I'm gonna look for the next opportunity that's gonna come along. And so I think that that really is a testament to the kind of person that you are. I'm sorry, Colin, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people have this idea of, oh, I go to a community college, that makes me less. But in a way, you play this has never been a better time to go to a community college because these companies need to recruit earlier and earlier. And maybe 20 years ago, they weren't recruiting from a sophomore, freshman, but now they are. And those programs tend to be diversity inclusion. And so a lot of, PCC is a Hispanic Serving Institute, which automatically puts you in a different bracket. You may come from a lower socioeconomic, they care about too, or whatever it may be that you think is a adherence. It makes you a worse not as competitive, actually is what they're looking for. And so being from a community college, whatever it may be, it's like throw yourself out there because they are looking for you. And it doesn't seem like that because they don't come on campuses, but as long as you have you polish your resume, as everyone has said, and accept that there's maybe some failures along the way, I promise you that these companies would love to have you. You just don't see in yourself first. So yeah.
To add to that, yeah, I think there's a really common misconception where community college is the place where you just pretty much your goal is just to transfer, right? And that's it. But like Colin said, I think there is a trend where, especially in accounting, they're really looking into your involvement a lot earlier in your academic career, because your grades have to be top notch. Don't neglect that, but also, take the time to get involved in clubs, especially if they're accounting related or business related. So just so you can put yourself out there, because I think leadership is a very good quality to have, and it's a good quality that you should develop and communication, because eventually down the line in accounting, you might be serving a client-facing role like consulting, right? So if you have those communication and behavioral skills, you develop that early, you have that advantage over someone who waits later and then haven't honed those skills.
It's interesting that I was just thinking about the kind of student that is at a community college, and a lot of them work. A lot of them come with work experience though, or working part-time jobs or full-time jobs and trying to do school, as opposed to maybe some of the more, I don't know, affluent four-year university, whatever. They're just like, I've never had a job in my life and I'm just a student. And I think that you want to leverage the fact that you have work experience. So I don't care if it's, at Taco Bell or H&M or wherever, you've had to deal with conflict. You've had to deal with prioritizing work, right? You've had to deal with, balancing schedules, and being organized. You can draw from that experience, though, and really leverage that in your application, though, at any internship. Yeah, Cougar, do you have something?
I was actually going to say that real quick. That's exactly what I was going to say right now, but good job.
Yeah, Cougar?
I mean the same thing. Every recruiter that I've interviewed with has mention my strong work experience. I've been working for almost 2 years while I'm at PCC, while I was at PCC. And I think it's extremely beneficial to be able to show that you can balance both school and work and efficiently balance school and work. I think that's what they really want to see. And you can build a lot of personal skills, right? That maybe someone who is only doing school can't really build. And so
Yeah.
I just think working well while you're at school is a great way to show that, hey, I'm dedicated, I can handle a workload, and I can succeed under a lot of pressure.
Yeah. And David, do you have something to add too?
Yeah, no, I'd love to give like a really great, like real life example of, how important your work plays into kind of who you are and pretty much the hiring process. So, I'm part of LBO, that's a business organization, and we had a member, she knew who I was and she knew I was getting an internship at PwC. And she came up to me one day and she said, straight up, hey, David, I need help with my resume. I don't have an extensive background in accounting. I don't have pretty much. She came with this preconceived idea of what that she needed to have an accounting background to get the accounting job. With the internship. And I said, okay, here, let me out. Let me help you out. So I helped her with the resume, and she didn't have a very extensive work experience. She was been working for about a year, but she was working at a boba shop. And I asked her, hey, what do you do at the boba shop? Oh, I'm the cashier. I handle the transactions, receipts, all this stuff. Okay. So you're good with numbers. That's a start. And then, how do you deal with customers? You handle refunds, yeah, I welcome customers. I'm always on time. I open the store, I check inventory, but none of this was on a resume. And I'm like, well, you should display those skills on the resume. So when they ask you, like, they know you're responsible. That's also comes with, a lot of community college students who work. That's a very big responsibility to have, being on top of your grade and also, going to work, showing up on time, just being a very responsible individual. So I let her know, don't downplay your strengths. Never think that
Absolutely.
those are your weaknesses. Make sure to put those at the forefront, especially if you feel that you've learned a lot from that. You could showcase that.
For sure. For sure. I know we're running up on our time, but I just wanted to quickly ask Peter, do you have any advice as to how community college students can kind of best position themselves and prepare to put themselves out there for internships? So what can they do? What advice do you have?
Of course. And all of us mentioned a lot of good things. I do want to emphasize applying yourself to your community, especially towards building a network of people who are like-minded. I know people who think like me, who want to move in the same direction as me, we're always sending each other different opportunities to get better, whether that is an internship, whether that is going to this meeting or some speaker event. It's always good to be there as well as building yourself with other people. And in terms of actually applying for the internship, if you're thinking that you shouldn't do an internship just because maybe you don't have the qualification or maybe it's not the right thing, just do it anyways. I call it the machine gun effect. I send applications everywhere and one of them is bound to hit. So just keep shooting and keep applying, and eventually you'll get an internship, and more doors will open up to you.
Yeah. How about Colin? Any advice for students?
Yeah, my first advice would be get on LinkedIn as fast as you can, because LinkedIn is where you can find recruiters. LinkedIn is where you can
Oh,
start
not
building your network.
TikTok.
That was
Okay.
tangible.
Okay,
But it
LinkedIn.
is very helpful. And I think the transition, if I were to do recruiting without LinkedIn, it would be very difficult. And so I think a lot of community college students, even ones that get into Haas, Berkeley, or transfer over to UCLA, enter their campus without a LinkedIn. I think you should start building it at a community college. There's a huge network of professors, alumni, which you can work from. And so to tap into those resources, it doesn't seem obvious, but it's very easy to navigate. The next thing I would say is if you're someone who's just came out of high school, join associated students. And if you're somebody who doesn't have that time, talk about your work experience. I would also say you to get an internship that is prestigious or whatever it may be, you just need to show that you're interested, and you do not have to have, as everyone has said, an accounting internship before you go to an accounting firm. And so I think realizing that your differences kind of makes you unique, and because of that, a lot of recruiters will look at you favorably is something that everyone should keep in mind. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Awesome.
How about
Definitely.
you, Nick?
I just want to add that the first one is the hardest one to get. That's also, as soon as you have, a quality experience, a nice company on your resume, opportunities open up pretty quickly.
Great. And David?
Yeah, and then I know we're a little bit over time here, but I know earlier you mentioned you want us to explain kind of the interview process and how that went. I could go into that, sure. So so in terms of PwC, and I also got an interview with EY. So that pretty much when you apply, they'll reach out to you, and you'll get an interview time. It's all online, so just like this on Zoom, and they're about an hour long. They're an hour-long interview sessions, broken up into two 30-minute sessions with two different interviewees. So for me, both at EY and PwC, I got interviewed by a partner and a manager. And, interview went, it was pretty great. They asked you questions, behavioral. So, how do you handle these situations? Tell me about a time you had to be a leader or you show leadership or, things like that. But definitely, I want to stress, go into the internship with research. Research the firm you're going to interview with, understand their goal, what kind of their mission statement is, understand their service lines. Don't go into it kind of as a blank slate. Go into it with some purpose and intention. And that's exactly what I did. I spoke of my previous experiences being involved in activities at my school, doing internships, and that pretty much have a story to tell. Show yourself, tell your story in a way where you have a very clear goal in mind. Like for me, I told them I want to become a CPA, in 2-3 years. Let them know that. Let them know what your prospects are, and don't be afraid to tell your story. And also on the opposite side of that, ask them who they are. I asked all my interviewees, how did they get to the position where they got? What do they like to do on their free time? I really had this good conversation with one of the partners there. She loved to go hiking. I like to go hiking. So, we're all human at the end of the day. And, these people, if you're gonna work with these individuals, they're gonna want to have a good relationship with you. So, yeah.
Very good points, David. Thank you for sharing that. And we'll finish it off with Cougar. Any advice and maybe share about your interview experience as well.
Let's see. Any advice? Use a resume template. Easily the best choice I've made was using the Eller College of Management, from University of Arizona. It just made my resume so much cleaner, and it just took away all of the risk that I had from utilizing a template that maybe a recruiter would have just tossed, right? So use a resume template, and then just practice you tell me about yourself, practice a couple stories, and just make sure it sounds fluent and that you can really, put together your thoughts in a strong manner. So I think it's really practicing for your interviews and getting down your tell me about yourself.
Well, thank you everybody for your time and sharing about your story. And maybe we can debrief after your summer, and you can kind of share about, kind of your experience as an intern too. So this is kind of the before going into the internship, and then we can kind of revisit at a later. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time, and we look forward to hearing more about you.
Definitely. Thank you, David.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
David. Hope this helps.
Guys.